This is part 1 in the Craftsman Emerson Gen 2 drill press rebuild series. Back in 2022, I did another Gen 2, and I will link that series here. In this video, we will be introduced to this drill press and then get on with the disassembly. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. So back in August of 2022, I rebuilt this Emerson Gen 2. It is a 1968 model, and I ended up selling it to my good friend Jordan on the Garage Journal forum, who lives not too far from me. He used to have one and wanted another one. And at the time, by the time I finished that rebuild, I really liked that drill press. They're not the best looking. I mean, it's kind of an ugly duckling of a drill press, but it's very cool. It has a lot of the technology and thought that went into the classic Craftsman drill presses, like the 100 and the 150 series, and even some carryover from Atlas Craftsman. But, and it was the first stray from the classic Craftsman design, that Art Deco design, to, I don't know what I call it, a skeletonized design, but it's, I don't even know what else you would call it. But it had a lot of really cool features in it. One, it was the first to have a on-off switch where you plug the motor into a panel on the drill press. 2, it had a light built into the drill press. 3, it had a belt cover. It had a very revolutionary hinged motor mount design. It still used the 1/2 inch by 45 inch V-belt, so you had the same speed capabilities. And the column actually had the milled section in it, so you could add the MSA multi-speed attachment in there if you wanted. It used the same base as a 150, and a lot of the parts are the same as a 150, like the lock handles and the hub and that kind of stuff. But it was a new drill press. So I've been looking for another one since then. And this is the one that I found. So this one is a 1967, and they only made these for 3 years. It's got that really cool clear acrylic see-through on the front that has your speeds rated on there, and you can see, I guess you were supposed to be able to look in there and see where the belt was sitting on the sheaves and know what the speed was set for. But pretty cool. This weird panel on the front that gave you pointers on how to operate the drill press. Nothing on the left side. And the feed retention spring was captured on the inside by a roll pin, and that we saw those in the late 150s. And so that design carried on. It had the quick adjust feed stop collar, but it also had a longer feed stop rod. It had the on-off switch, like I said before, with the panel where you plug the motor into it. There's the motor plugged into it. And the motor had that weird hinged design there. And that's how you tensioned your belt. There's the motor model number. It's 113.12130. Of course, the belt cover. And they use those same 150 handles, but it had these 2 column collars. This one was missing one, so I had to buy that other one off of eBay. So basically, Emerson redesigned the table and the head casting There's the model number data panel. It's a 11324560, 1967. So Emerson kept the column and the base from the 150 and the lock handles and the hub, pinion and spring, the chuck. But the quill and the spindle are longer. So the drill press has the longest travel of all of the Craftsman drill presses. All right, so that's what we're starting with. Let's get on with the disassembly. Okay, we'll go ahead and get that column collar and the chuck key out of the way. And we'll unplug the motor. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove that belt cover. So there's supposed to be a rod on the inside that runs the whole width of the belt cover with a thumb screw or nut on the end of it. I guess the previous owner switched it out for these two screws with nuts, but that's the part 89 that should be in there. And so we'll be fabricating that later on. So I'm just going to undo these two short screws with nuts from each side. And then we'll be able to just lift that cover right off of there. And it gets hung up on that hinged motor mount sometimes. There we go. You can see some dirt dauber nest inside there. Next, we'll go ahead and remove that quick adjust feed stop collar. And that little lock there, kind of hard to turn, so grabbed a pair of pliers. Slide that off of there. Next, we can remove the spindle quill assembly. The only thing that's holding it in now is the pinion in the gear rack of the quill. So we'll lower the table, get it out of the way. And we're going to pull out on the hub, which will disengage the pinion from the gear rack on the quill. And then we can pull straight down on the spindle quill assembly and pull it out. Let the tension slowly off of the feed return spring. We can go ahead and remove the quill lock, and that should just pull straight out. You've got three, well, a little more than three parts there, but three parts basically. Next, I'm going to go ahead and disengage that spring, the feed return spring. It's on a roll pin inside the head casting, and sometimes it's a little hard to get to, so I'm going to use a screwdriver to kind of lift it up and off of that roll pin, and we should be able to pull it out. And there's the loop that loops onto the roll pin. Next, we'll go ahead and loosen the screw that holds the tension rod in place. And then we can slide that tension rod out. Take that screw off of that. And the mount that it's on also rotates. It's just screwed into the head casting. We can remove it. So now we're going to remove the belt since we can relieve the tension. And then we're going to remove this clamp on the side that holds the power cord. And weirdly enough, on the owner's manual, which it's linked in the description area of the video below, says that that's a capacitor clamp. I don't know why, but the screw that I'm loosening here holds the hinge, the main rod for the hinge plate inside the head casting. And once we've loosened it, we can rotate the hinge. You'll see it drop down. There you go. And then we can rotate and kind of open up that hinge because we need to remove that center bar to get the motor off of there. Now, that center bar has an E-clip, I guess, is what you call it, on the top, which keeps it from going too deep. So we're just going to tap it from the bottom and then pull it up, and then we can remove the motor. And we can remove that screw completely. And then the hinge support should come straight out of the head casting. There's a rubber washer on the top of that as well. Next, we'll go ahead and remove the headlock, and we can remove this because we've got that column clamp directly under it that's holding the head in place. So we'll just use the handle to thread the lock on this side and pull it out. And the sleeve on the other side is a little stuck in there, so I'm just going to use a wooden dowel and tap it and then be able to pull it out from the other side. So now we should be able to remove the head casting, and as long as you keep it going, don't let it get bound up there, and it's kind of a pain, but it comes off, no problem. We can go ahead and remove that column collar. And on most of these, the nuts are welded to one half of the column collar, so you need to loosen the bolts, not the nuts. If you sit there and try to loosen those nuts, you're just going to screw up your wrench and the column collar and fight against a weld. That slides off of there. We can go ahead and lift the table off now, so we'll just unlock it and lift it straight up. Sorry it's off camera, but it'll be back on camera in just a second. And if you have that second column collar, you can go ahead and remove it. And then we're going to loosen the lock set screw that's in the base for the column and pull it out. There should be a shoe inside there that's pressing on the column. And my column is not lifting out of the base easy, so we're going to tap it out. And I just want to show you guys what we're going to be doing here. So there's your column, and that's what we're going to tap on. And you've got these three protrusions that you need to have the column sitting above when we reinstall it. So they should be touching the ground, not the column. So I'm just using a piece of bar stock here and tapping on the bottom of the column, not on the base. I'm careful not to chip the edge of the base. Once we get that column past that first bore, we'll see if it'll move. And if it turns, which it does, okay, so we're good. So now we can stand that up and just lift the column out of there. If it didn't turn, then you just need to keep tapping on it until it does. And there we go. And then we'll just use a screwdriver to pop that shoe out of there. And that's your major disassembly. So now we're just pulling the lock out of the table. And there's your three pieces of it: the lock, the sleeve, and the handle or screw. We'll get a little bit of organization going on here. Clean up the workspace a little. Set the table aside. Lots of dirt dauber nest. Yeah, welcome to the South. All right, so we got that little screw that comes out of there. And it's actually brass. So I don't know why it's sticking, but it is. I guess once we get it all cleaned up, it'll turn a lot easier. And then these two components twist apart, and there's a spring on the inside. One part on the left there is your quick adjust, and the part on the right was the fine adjust. And we'll just disassemble these two column clamps. So this one is the one I bought off of eBay, and it uses a carriage bolt. So I'm not sure. It said it was Craftsman, and it fits, but who knows. And this is how all the other column clamps were that I've seen on all of these Gen 2s all the way through Gen 4s. The nut is welded to 1/2 of the column clamp. All right, so this is the Quill lock handle, and this is the same design that was designed all the way back in the 100 series. So it's got a small set screw, and you just remove that set screw, and then the chrome handle comes away from the screw. There's a little channel in the screw that set screw rides in. All right, we'll go ahead and remove the feed handle rods from the hub. And this is exactly the same design as a 150. So just make sure you don't cross thread them or anything. And if the feed handle knobs are on there too tight, then just drop the rod inside a vise and twist the knobs off, like so. Pretty easy. And I knocked off one of those magnetic jaws, soft jaws. I'll just stick it back on there. Those magnets aren't super strong. We'll carry on with this and knock out all three of these. And I'm not going to do any time lapse in this video. So that should be all three of them. All right, so now we can disassemble the hub, pinion, and spring assembly. There is a 1/4 inch pin that goes through all three of them, and I was just looking to see if I could see the splines on that pin. And they are facing down now. They're on the bottom side. So we're going to drive this out with the splines away from us. And we'll see the pin here, and you can see there are splines just on that 1/4 of it, down at that end. The rest of it is smooth. So when we put it back in, we want to put it back in with the smooth first and the splines engaging that edge. So if you're unable to, we can go ahead and pull the spring out. There you go. It's got double loops on both sides, just like a late 150. And there is a fiber washer that should be on the hub here. There it is. And I can't find replacements for these. If I end up messing one up or if I'm missing one, I usually cut it out of gasket material. But since they're so hard to find, I'm exercising care here not to tear it or bend it or anything like that, damage it. Slide it off of there. And I'm not entirely sure it needs to be there, but it is a part that was on there by the manufacturer. So we'll just put the pinion inside the vise and then twist the hub off of it. Like so. All right. So that's going to wrap up this video. We will continue with the disassembly in part 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I appreciate all the support. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of stuff linked down in the description of the video for this drill press and the motor and all that. So, as always, I will see you next time.